Today we're going to be taking Hebi Sasuke, the one who fought against Itachi and Deidara and who had Orochimaru absorbed into his body, and throw him against every single Akatsuki member, and determine how many could he beat. Starting off with Deidara. This fight we've seen in canon actually. Now, some people say that it was Sasuke's plot armor that gave him the victory, but no, it wasn't. Everything that gave Sasuke the victory was set up beforehand. Lightning style, being strong against earth style, the genjutsu that he caught Deidara on a couple of times, as well as his summoning jutsus and the ability to put his summons under genjutsu to take him out of sticky situations. Deidara vs Sasuke is one of the best fights in the Naruto series. It's definitely one of the most strategic ones. If you don't take Shikamaru's fights into account, this is the most strategic fight in the series, which is great. And even if you still think Sasuke should have lost this fight, remember that he was actually fighting against Tobi as well. Tobi was helping Deidara out, putting the landmines on the ground and stuff. So Sasuke wins against Deidara. It's high difficulty, but he takes the victory. Now let's talk about Sasuke versus Itachi, the other fight we actually saw in canon, and Sasuke also quote-unquote won this fight. However, this is a much different fight from the Deidara one, because Itachi had other plans than to beat Sasuke. Itachi's goals were to die in front of Sasuke, pretending Sasuke was the one who caused Itachi's own death, so that Sasuke can be hailed as a hero once he returns to the Leaf Village. Itachi also wanted to make sure he would take Orochimaru out of Sasuke's body so that Orochimaru wouldn't try anything funny in the future, and also give Sasuke the contingency for Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan so that Sasuke would activate Amaterasu once Obito comes into close contact with him. Itachi never intended on winning this fight. Obito made that very clear once he talks to Sasuke about it, and he even tells Sasuke that if Itachi wanted to, he would have killed Sasuke without much trouble. And yeah, he had a completed Susanoo with a Totsuka blade and the Yara mirror, so a hypothetical Itachi that wants to win the fight would have. Therefore, Hebi Sasuke would lose in this situation. Moving on to Kisame, and this is a very interesting fight. Both Sasuke and Kisame are actually very fast. Some people may not think about Kisame being a speedster, but he was able to dodge Killer Bee with his 8 Tails mantle, which is something that Sasuke also does in his fight against Killer Bee. And sure, that's not Hebi Sasuke that fights against Killer Bee, but that version of Sasuke is actually weaker than Hebi Sasuke. He was nerfed because he got Orochimaru taken out of him. He didn't have experience with his Mangekyo Sharingan yet. He didn't have the curse mark anymore. So seeing how both Kisame and Sasuke performed against Bee puts them around the same level of speed. Kisame was unable to dodge a version 2 attack from Killer Bee, even though he reacted to it and still absorbed the chakra, and Sasuke did get hit by Killer Bee in his mental state with a lariat, but Sasuke was definitely caught off guard in that situation because he thought the fight was done. Obviously, Kisame has the elemental advantage against Sasuke's fire style, himself being the strongest water style user in the entire series. Fire style would pretty much be useless against him, even though Sasuke still has lightning style, which definitely will be useful. We see with Suigetsu that lightning style can be pretty detrimental to water style, even though it's not technically the most powerful element against, because that will be earth style. Water style doesn't really like lightning style. Kisame would face a bit of a problem here because he likes to fight against opponents with a lot of chakra so that he can drain them with Samehada and take the chakra for himself. Now, Sasuke is not a chakra slouch. He does have a decent amount of it. It's just not something insane like a Jinchuriki would have. Kisame himself says that the more chakra the opponent has, the stronger he'll become, and we can clearly see that when he uses the chakra he drains from Killer Bee to literally heal a massive wound. And I'm not saying that draining chakra from Sasuke wouldn't be a very good strategy, because it definitely would. It's just that there isn't as much available, and also because Sasuke's chakra is not something he flares out of his own body like a Kyuubi cloak, for instance. Kisame wouldn't be able to drain it as easily with Samehada. He would have to come into closer contact with Sasuke and actually slash him with Samehada, or alternatively, he could engage Sasuke in taijutsu and do a slower drain, such as the one he was doing against Suigetsu in their quote-unquote friendly bout. Suigetsu says, "Oh, I didn't notice that I was losing chakra, but all of a sudden, like, I'm missing chakra here, even though I shouldn't." And that's because Kisame was passively draining him as they were clashing blows. However, when it comes to close quarters combat with swords, for instance, because Sasuke also has a sword not as big as Samehada, but still, he can lace the sword with lightning style, which could hurt Samehada and very much could hurt Kisame. We see that a pencil from Killer Bee enhanced with lightning was able to hurt Kisame, so Sasuke's sword laced with lightning would definitely do so as well. Sasuke could also lace his entire body with lightning style, which would be very annoying for Kisame to deal with in close quarters. Now, you may say that Samehada would be able to drain the lightning style out of Sasuke, but that's not actually how Samehada works. The sword can only absorb raw chakra and not ninjutsu itself. It's not a Preta path. We see that when Itachi uses the fireball jutsu against Naruto and Bee in the war, and Bee uses the the Samehada to deflect the attack, he just cuts the fireball in half, he doesn't absorb it, and Samehada doesn't like that at all. It burns Samehada, so you can imagine that Lightning Style would do something similar. Sasuke's greatest advantage in close quarters will be his Sharingan. Even though I would argue Sasuke would be a little bit faster than Kisame here, Sasuke also has the Sharingan, which grants him much better precog, meaning that it would be a bad idea for Kisame to engage Sasuke in close quarters, even if he tries to do the slow absorption technique. Kisame would most likely retreat, and from a long distance start to throw water-style attacks against Sasuke. He would flood the battlefield like he usually does, and essentially spam water sharks and water attacks against Sasuke. Sasuke has the ability to fly with his curse mark, which would allow him to escape the water for the most part, unless Kisame uses the massive water bubble that he used against Killer Bee. That would be very problematic, even though I could see the curse mark wings kind of swimming for him in that particular situation. It wouldn't be very good. The one advantage I can see when Sasuke is in water is that his lightning style will be enhanced. If he uses Chidori Stream, for example, the current would spread around the water and be more detrimental to Kisame, so he wouldn't be able to get as close as he would want to. Now, obviously, Kisame has more chakras, so a water of attrition here would favor him, but Sasuke also has other means to deal with him, mainly Genjutsu. We never see Kisame dealing with Genjutsu, but every time he spoke about Itachi's eyes, he talked about the Sharingan with a lot of reverence. The thing is, Sasuke is very proficient with Genjutsu. He manages to completely destroy Orochimaru in terms of Genjutsu, and Orochimaru is a very proficient Genjutsu user. But we also know that Kisame actually knows some stuff about the Sharingan. I mean, he was Itachi's partner for a long time. He would know a couple of things about it. We see that when Deidara first joins the Akatsuki and Itachi has this brief confrontation with him, Kisame is the one who explains to Deidara what just happened, how he was caught under the Genjutsu, so Kisame would know not to look directly at Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke also has Kirin going for him, which if he manages to set up and strikes Kisame with it, there's no way he's going to dodge that. Itachi needed his Susanoo, which has an instantaneous activation time in order to block it, and Kisame simply doesn't have anything of that caliber. It wouldn't be too difficult to set it up if they're fighting outdoors and if he is not inside of a massive water bubble, which to be fair, Sasuke can also fly up to avoid any water attacks. Would Kirin outright kill Kisame? I don't think it actually would. I think Kisame could tank a Kirin. After all, Kisame was able to tank a Hirodora, but he would get severely wounded and Sasuke could go in for the kill. Now, would Sasuke be able to catch Kisame in a Genjutsu or beat him in close quarters combat, landing a Chidori to kill the guy? Or maybe even he would land a Kirin? Or will Kisame be able to use his bubble jutsu to imprison Sasuke essentially? Sasuke would have to counter with his lightning style, but even trying to run away would be difficult. The best solution for Sasuke to leave the bubble and continue fighting would be to go up with his curse mark and actually exit the bubble from above, because the bubble can move with you sideways and accompany you wherever you go so that you never leave it. But it can't go up as far as we know unless Kisame puts more water into it. Maybe Sasuke is also an extremely intelligent character. Just look at the fight against Deidara. That was one of the most layered and complex strategies that any character has ever pulled off in the entire series. So Sasuke would dissect Kisame's jutsus and come up with interesting counters. Now the question is, would the counters work? Because Kisame is not dumb either. He's not a strategy master or anything like Sasuke is in this version, but he can hold his own. Another last resort that Sasuke would have in his favor would be Orochimaru's substitution jutsu with a skin change if Kisame catches him and deals a finishing blow. Now that spends a lot of chakra from Sasuke, but still, it's better than dying. And maybe he could even use that to catch Kisame off guard, thinking that, oh, I actually killed him, but no, Sasuke's still alive. This is an extremely difficult fight. Whoever wins is going to be exhausted and hurt at the end of the battle. Honestly, it could go either way depending on the circumstances. Sasuke is not a very good opponent for Kisame, so he would win 6 out of 10 times high difficulty, and Kisame would win 4 out of 10, of course. Moving on to Orange Mask Obito, aka Tobi. This fight would be very difficult for Sasuke. Obito knows everything there is to know about the Sharingan. He would also know about Sasuke's powers and Orochimaru's powers that Sasuke would have access to in this battle. When Obito was 14 years old, he was fighting against Minato and being pretty relative to him in speed, so he would be able to react to anything Sasuke threw against him. Even Kirin, he could just phase through Kirin with his Kamui. Now, because this Sasuke is a tactical genius, maybe he would be able to dissect that Obito has to materialize before he hits somebody, and would try to capitalize on that. But even so, the fight still goes very much to Obito's favor here. I could see Sasuke maybe cutting off one of Obito's arms or legs. That seems to happen a lot during the series, to be honest. I mean, if Obito lost an arm to Torune, I can see him losing an arm to Hebi Sasuke, but he wouldn't lose the fight. He would be able to Kamui Sasuke into the Kamui dimension and just win without much difficulty. Now let's talk about Orochimaru. Bear in mind, this is going to be the version of Orochimaru that was a member of the Akatsuki Akatsuki back in the day. So he won't have Edo Tensei because he simply didn't have access to it when he was in the Akatsuki. Now, if you were to pit Orochimaru with Edo Tensei against Hebi Sasuke, Orochimaru wins. Especially War Arc Orochimaru that can bring back the 4 first Hokage almost at the peak of their power. But Akatsuki member Orochimaru is not as clear cut. First, because Sasuke has access to literally every single jutsu that Orochimaru would have in this situation. He can use the snakes to protect himself and attack. He can substitute just like Orochimaru does. And he literally has Orochimaru's power amping his physical capabilities here. Also, Itachi literally one-shot that Orochimaru with a paralysis genjutsu, and Sasuke does the exact same thing to Orochimaru years later using the same genjutsu. So this will already be a very tough fight for Orochimaru. Sasuke also no-diffed Orochimaru in canon when they fought. Of course, there was a different version of Orochimaru and he was sick. However, he destroyed Orochimaru so completely that it feels a little bit embarrassing for the guy, even though he was sick. Sasuke famously says, "I only beat Orochimaru because he was weak." But if you think statements are that important, you should also take a look at the statement when Sasuke tells Orochimaru he is stronger than him, very blatantly. He says that in the process of killing Orochimaru, and Sasuke knew that if Orochimaru was to take Sasuke's body, he would be healed from his sickness, and he was still going and trying to kill Orochimaru, meaning that he thought he himself would be stronger than Orochimaru, and that's the entire reason why he was killing Orochimaru, because he thought he had a better shot of killing Itachi than Orochimaru did after taking Sasuke's body. And then you can say Sasuke was lying to Orochimaru, that he was just hyping himself up, but I can also counter that argument saying that Sasuke was downplaying himself to Team Hebi. And even if Orochimaru was at the peak of his power, if Sasuke caught him in that paralysis genjutsu, there's nothing he could do about it. Being sick or not doesn't really affect your ability to break out of genjutsu, or resist genjutsu entirely for that matter. And we also have to bear in mind that the Sasuke who fought a sick Orochimaru in canon was weaker than the Sasuke we're analyzing here, who had Orochimaru absorbed. So Sasuke takes Orochimaru mid-difficulty. Moving on to Zetsu, and we're going to be doing white and black Zetsu sharing the same body as they usually do before the War Arc, because this makes the character a little bit more powerful, even though it's probably not going to help him very much. Black Zetsu has access to Wood Style, which he uses to stalemate Mei and a couple of Jonins in the War Arc, and then he is defeated by Chojuro, even though he was able to dodge a KCM-1 Naruto Rasen Shuriken, which is pretty impressive. We saw how Sasuke dealt with Wood Style when he had a brief altercation with Yamato, and that Sasuke was weaker than Hebi Sasuke. His Chidori stream completely unraveled Yamato's wood, and his sword slashes were cutting through the Wood Style very easily, so the Wood Style Black Zetsu uses against him here wouldn't be that much of an issue. White Zetsu also has the Spore Jutsu, which can be annoying for Sasuke. The spores can attach around his body and impair his movements, but I can see him using a Chidori stream, completely negating that. Nobody in the 5 Kage Summit really had a problem dealing with the Spore Jutsu. Sure, it was a bit annoying and it drained a little bit of the chakra, but still, it wasn't that big of an issue. Black Zetsu was also terrified of an armless Minato and a chakraless Kakashi during the War Arc, so that he couldn't leave Obito's body because they would destroy him. So yeah, Sasuke takes this fight low difficulty. Moving on to Hidan, who's always very interesting to talk about because his jutsu is just very peculiar and dangerous for anyone that bleeds, essentially. Obviously, Hidan would have to draw blood from Sasuke in order to perform his ritual, which would be very difficult, let's be honest here. Even if Sasuke decides to engage Hidan in taijutsu, we saw how Kakashi was able to deal with Hidan in taijutsu when they were fighting, and Kakashi was doing just fine. That Kakashi is slower than Hebi Sasuke. He also has the Sharingan, which was helping him out, but Sasuke has more prowess with his Sharingan being a full-blooded Uchiha and all. So even if Sasuke goes for a straight close quarters confrontation without using any other jutsus, just raw taijutsu with his sword clashing with Hidan's scythe, I don't really see this fight as being much of an issue for Sasuke. Hidan literally tells Kakuzu in the first fight that they're introduced that he is the slowest member of the Akatsuki, and we know Sasuke is extremely fast, so this is already a big problem for him. And honestly, the way I see this fight going is Hidan rushing at Sasuke completely mad, saying, "I'm gonna sacrifice you to Jashin-sama!" And then Sasuke just looks at his eyes and puts him under a genjutsu, and that's it, the fight's over. If Sasuke wants to be mean about it, he can just use his curse mark to fly above Hidan, who can't fly, and he can shoot fire-style jutsus and lightning-style jutsus at him. Sasuke wins no difficulty here. Now moving on to Kakuzu. Kakuzu has some interesting feats against Kakashi in taijutsu. He seems to be more powerful than Kakashi in that regard. He is faster. He manages to catch Kakashi a couple of times, slamming him onto the ground, and he almost removes Kakashi's heart. Although in the War Arc, he gets hit by Izumo and Kotetsu, which is not the greatest feat you could possibly think of. And he gets blitzed by Naruto 2 times with a Rasen Shuriken. A Naruto who had a baby amp of the Nine Tails' chakra Deidara and used 3 clones. The distraction was able to hit Kakuzu 2 times. One time didn't work because the jutsu fizzled out because Naruto wasn't used to it. And bear in mind that Naruto just a couple of weeks earlier in the Tenchi Bridge arc couldn't really track Sasuke with his eyes. And sure, that Naruto didn't have a Nine Tails amp, but the amp Naruto got against Kakuzu wasn't that big of a deal. Obviously, Kakuzu's most powerful jutsus are his elemental attacks that he uses through his weird hearts that can detach themselves from Kakuzu's body, attacking people from all sides. Now, Kakashi was able to deal with those hearts pretty well. He was able to literally tank the wind style attack. He used his Raikiri to block the lightning style attack. Sasuke literally can do the exact same thing. And he was able to fend off the wind style and fire style combination attack with a water wall. Now, the water wall was just buying Kakashi time to go and flee from the attack because the water was being completely destroyed by it eventually. But we have to take into account that Sasuke is faster than this Kakashi, and Sasuke also has means to block attacks. We see when Deidara literally shoots an explosive from above, Sasuke uses his snake, wrapping it around his body to tank the explosion, and Sasuke is completely unscathed. The snake looks a little bit roughed up, but it doesn't look completely destroyed either, and even Deidara's C1 explosions hit very hard. And as I mentioned before, when Kakuzu used wind-style Atsugai on Kakashi, he just tanked the attack, meaning that Hebi Sasuke wouldn't have much trouble dealing with Kakuzu's elemental style abilities. Now, there's something we never see Kakuzu using, but he definitely had access to, which was a water-style heart. That heart was destroyed by Kakashi before the fight even begins, because Kakashi just snuck up on him and landed a Raikiri. Kakuzu would have access to this heart in the fight against Sasuke here, but assuming the heart has the same level of power as the other hearts, it's not something that would threaten Sasuke all that much, even though it would be an additional heart that Sasuke would have to take care of. Luckily for Sasuke, he has the perfect counter for Kakuzu's most annoying ability, which is his diamond skin. He has lightning style, and we literally see Kakashi completely negating Kakuzu's raw durability by landing a Raikiri on him. Sasuke would be able to avoid the elemental style attacks either by dodging or just blocking, and eventually land a Raikiri on Kakuzu, forcing him to use another heart every time he gets a kill. Also, Sasuke could attack the masks themselves when they're outside of Kakuzu's body, and Sasuke also has Kirin, which Kakuzu literally has no answer to. If Kakuzu does something insane and brings all 5 masks into his body, kind of like he was doing against Naruto in the end of the fight, there's nothing he can do against Kirin. It's just going to kill him instantly and destroy every single heart. When it comes to Kakuzu's weird wires that were able to grapple people around, we see that Kakashi had a pretty good counter for it called Raikiri as well, which Sasuke has access to, and in greater variety. He could use his Chidori spear to cut through several wires at the same time should the need arise, and he could even use those jutsus to offend Kakuzu as well. Also, we just don't know how well Kakuzu deals with genjutsu. Maybe the autonomous hearts can literally break him out of it, which would be a very cool way of dealing with genjutsu, but it just never really happens in the story. But even without considering Sasuke's genjutsu, he would be able to take Kakuzu down mid-difficulty at most. Moving on to Konan. Usually Konan has a very big advantage against anybody she fights because she can fly and most people can't, but Sasuke can with his curse mark, so this would be negated. Even a hypothetical paper bomb ocean that Konan uses against Sasuke here would be negated because Sasuke can fly out of it. But still, Konan's no slouch. She can mold her paper into different weapons, she can use it to suffocate people, she can introduce paper bombs into the mixture to make it more explosive. She was able to tag Obito, now granted he wasn't taking her very seriously. She can also create explosive paper clones, which is a very interesting jutsu she uses against the Aburame clan during the Pain arc. Even still, base Jiraiya dealt with her very easily. Jiraiya was able to match a paper barrage from Konan with his fire style and then landed an oil attack, which kind of rendered her useless, making her unable to move anymore. And from that exchange, we can see that Konan doesn't do very well against fire style. I mean, she's literally the paper girl, right? Her body turns into paper. I have to imagine this would not be very good against fire style. I can see Sasuke avoiding most of Konan's attacks. If she uses a paper barrage with paper bombs, he can use his snake as a shield just like he did against Deidara, who's a master at explosives, and I have to imagine Deidara's explosives hit harder than paper bombs. Sasuke could lace his body with lightning style if Konan enwraps him with her papers, destroying them in the process. I mean, if Sasuke's Chidori stream can completely destroy Yamato's wood style, I have to assume it would also destroy Konan's papers. So Sasuke takes this one mid-difficulty. Moving on to Sasori, and this is a very interesting one. Now, for starters, the Hiruko puppet wouldn't do very well against Sasuke. The tail wouldn't be able to catch Sasuke in any way, and the needles would be very easily dodged by Sasuke. Shio was dodging the needles effortlessly and at the same time guiding Sakura with her threads to make Sakura dodge them. So Sasuke being faster than both of them by a massive amount, and with a Sharingan he wouldn't have have problems with that, and he would be able to destroy the Hiroko puppet, no issues. Of course, Sasori has more puppets, including the third Kazekage puppet, which would definitely be something he would want to use in this particular situation, because it is his strongest one. Now, beginning of Shippuden, Sakura was doing very well against the Iron Sand of the third Kazekage. Of course, she was still guiding her a little bit with the threads, but she wasn't doing nearly as much as in the beginning because one of her arms got utilized. And let's just say that beginning of Shippuden Sakura is a tad bit slower than Hebi Sasuke. I mean, we literally saw how she dealt with Sasuke in the Tenchi Bridge arc. She couldn't even see him coming down and blitzing Naruto, and Hebi Sasuke will be faster than the Sasuke in the Tenchi Bridge arc because it has Orochimaru absorbed and he had more training, so Sasuke would be able to avoid the attacks from the third Kazekage puppet. And even if Sasuke gets hit by the Iron Sand or even a cloud of smoke, there's a problem for Sasori here. Sasuke literally has Orochimaru absorbed into his body, and Orochimaru was the guy who was immune to poison just because of his experiments and his snake-style jutsus. And Sasuke was groomed by Orochimaru for 3 years. He took all types of drugs, and I have to imagine antidotes as well to be immune to poison, essentially. Still, we can't assume that because Sasori is such a good poison maker, he would make a poison that would even affect Orochimaru himself just because of how good he is in doing that. There is precedent to it. After all, Sakura literally had to invent a new antidote for that poison. But still, I'm hard-pressed to say that Sasuke would even get hit by any of Sasori's attacks using the third Kazekage puppet. And there's another problem for Sasori here. The durability of every single puppet he has is really trash. Sakura one-shots literally every single puppet she touches in the fight. She one-shots the Hiruko puppet, she one-shots the third Kazekage, she one-shots dozens upon dozens of puppets when Sasori brings up the 100 puppet army, and Sakura also one-shots Sasori himself, his body puppets. Every single time she lands a punch, she destroys them. Now, you may be saying Sakura had a very strong punch. And yes, Sakura was pretty strong. She was able to destroy big rocks. She was able to punch the ground and destroy it effortlessly in the bell test. Of course, Sakura's punches are no joke. But remember the first thing Sasuke ever does when he shows up in Naruto Shippuden for me real quick? He uses a casual fire style jutsu, and he makes a crater on the ground. That place in the hideout was carved up by Sasuke's fire style, and that's a way bigger crater than anything Sakura ever does, at least up until the war arc. So a casual fire style attack from Sasuke would be more than enough to one-shot any of Sasori's puppets. Obviously, Sasuke would also have access to Chidori. I have no doubt he would be able to slash through the puppets with his sword as well. Also, when Sasori brings up the 100 puppet army that he does against Chiyo there, we see that Sakura does pretty well against them, dodging several puppets, one-shotting them in this very fluid taijutsu motion. And obviously, Chiyo is helping her out with that. But I see Sasuke doing much better in this situation than Sakura is doing, and Sakura was doing great. I mean, Sasuke has the Sharingan, he has insane precog. He is far faster than Sakura. And if he feels the need to equalize the battlefield somewhat, he could summon Manda and put her under a genjutsu to fight against the army with him. I mean, I can see Manda doing a lot of damage, slapping several puppets at the same time with that big tail and even biting them down. Manda would probably die because the puppets would be able to hit it because it just has a massive body if Manda can take poison damage from them. But Sasuke wasn't really care about Manda dying. He sacrificed Manda without a second thought in the fight against Deidara, so he'd definitely do that if he needs to in the fight. And also Sasuke has Kirin, which he wouldn't have much trouble setting up here if they're fighting in an open field. And if they're not fighting in an open field, Sasuke could easily take the fight to an open field. He can literally fly with his curse mark. And yes, Sasori can quote-unquote fly as well, but not nearly as much as Sasuke can. His flight seems to be more of an assisted jump with that weird helicopter thing he has, because he doesn't hang up in the air for very long. And let's be real here, Kirin would one-shot the entire puppet army with Sasori. It was able to carve open the Uchiha hideout. It was a massive explosion, and it's definitely more powerful than a Sakura punch, meaning that every single puppet there would be destroyed. Now, even if Sasori manages to survive and fight Sasuke with his body puppet, Sasuke wouldn't have much problem dealing with the attacks Sasori would throw against him. Sakura and Chiyo were doing just fine when he was using his weird fire and water attacks, and Hebi Sasuke is very intelligent. He would most certainly figure out Sasori's weakness, the living core in Sasori's body. He would pierce that with his sword or with a Chidori, or he would just Kirin Sasori with it. The only way I can see Sasori feasibly winning this fight is if Sasuke is vulnerable to his poison, which is probably not the case, and even still, Sasuke's chances are much higher here. I would say Sasuke takes the fight 9 out of 10 times or 8 out of 10 times, lowballing falling mid to high difficulty because Sasori has a lot of layers to his arsenal, so he wouldn't go down easily in the beginning. Sasuke would have to sweat in order to win, especially considering the massive puppet army that he has access to, but Sasuke would eventually come out on top. Moving on to Pain. Obviously, Pain is an extremely powerful foe. Now, there are two possibilities for Sasuke to fight against him, either taking Jiraiya's spot or Naruto's spot when he arrives in the Leaf Village. Those are very different scenarios, to be honest. Jiraiya fights Pain with no intel whatsoever. He has to figure things out during the fight, but he also doesn't fight against all 6 of them. Only, at the very end of the fight, he actually starts fighting against 1 path and then 3, and then the 6 show up, but Jiraiya just loses immediately when that happens. Naruto's fighting against all 6 of them from the beginning, but he has full intel, and Pain is nerfed because he was fighting against the entire village and he spent a great deal of chakra. Now, starting with the Jiraiya scenario, Sasuke would do really well in the beginning of the fight. He could summon Manda and use a genjutsu on her to fight against the animal path summons, and Sasuke would also be able to see through the chameleon with his Sharingan. He can see chakra, so the chameleon wouldn't be very effective at all in camouflaging Pain. Because Manda is actually more powerful than Gamabunta, who scales kinda at the same level as Gamaken, who was fighting against the hounds, I can actually see Sasuke getting the upper hand here and striking the animal path down. After all, the animal path wasn't exactly the fastest path in Pain's arsenal. However, once the animal path is defeated, the other 5 paths would converge to Sasuke's location, and then things would just get very ugly. He would more than likely be able to resurrect the animal path within the Naraka path, and then the fight would be a 6-on-1 against Sasuke. So we can actually talk about the situation where Naruto was, putting Sasuke in his place in the Leaf Village, assuming Sasuke has every single intel that he could have in this particular situation, and Pain is a little bit weakened. But now he has to fight against the 6 of them at the same time. The thing is, sure, Sasuke can summon Manda to help him out, but Naruto had Gamaken, Gamahiro, Gamabunta, Fukasaku, and Shima helping him out in the fight, and they were already struggling quite a bit. Also, Tendo Pain was able to deal with all 3 massive toads with a very casual Shinra Tensei. Sure, Sasuke is extremely fast and he is intelligent. Maybe he would be able to catch the Pains under a genjutsu. Not all of them, but a couple of them to take them out one by one. Also, because Tendo Pain wouldn't have Shinra Tensei and Bancho Tenning in the beginning of the fight because he just blew up the entire Leaf Village and the cooldown was long, Sasuke could capitalize on that particular moment of weakness, but the animal path summons would be very annoying. Manda alone would struggle against them, and Sasuke would have his ninjutsu pretty much negated by the Preta Path. Now, of course, he would engage the Preta Path in Taijutsu, exploiting the Preta Path's weakness, and he could also try to implement smoke bombs, fire-style jutsus to clutter the battlefield with smoke and dust so that Pain couldn't use his shared field of view, but this fight would be extremely complicated for Sasuke. The only way I can see him winning is before Pain gets Shinra Tensei back, Sasuke manages to set up Kirin, and then he uses Kirin on every single path of Pain at the same time, which is not that far-fetched to think about because in many situations they're all combined in a single location, so in theory this could happen, and because Pain wouldn't be able to Shinra Tensei Kirin away, and the Preta Path wouldn't be able to absorb it because it's actual lightning and not ninjutsu, Sasuke could take every single path down at the same time. After all, the paths of Pain don't really have the best durability in the world. Tendo Pain is destroyed by a single Rasengan, same thing goes for the Asura path, the Naraka path is pretty roughed up by Konohamaru's Rasengan, the Preta path is literally one-shot by Naruto's punch using Frog Kumite, so a Kirin, this very powerful AoE attack, would take them all down if Tendo Pain didn't have Shinra Tensei to block it. Is this a likely scenario? No, it's not. Pain would do everything to interfere with Sasuke's plan here and make it difficult for him to set up Kirin. There would be a lot of pressure on Sasuke, even with Manda helping him out, but there's a possibility. That's the thing about Kirin, it's an extremely powerful jutsu. It's much faster than a Rasen Shuriken, which was very dangerous for the paths of Pain, and the Preta path cannot absorb it. So because Tendo Pain was nerfed in the beginning of the fight and couldn't use his powers, there's a chance Sasuke just lands Kirin on them. They wouldn't be able to react to it. So does that mean Sasuke wins? Yeah, 1 to 2 out of 10 times in this particular situation where Pain is nerfed. In the Rain Village, however, no, Sasuke doesn't win there. There's just absolutely nothing he can do. I can see Sasuke taking 2, 3, maybe even 4 Pains down if you highball him in this situation, but if Tendo Pain isn't nerfed, Sasuke doesn't take the win here. And even with Pain nerfed, it's a very difficult situation for Sasuke. Every single factor would have to converge in his favor, and it would still be very difficult. So yeah, 1 to 2 times times out of 10 when Pain is nerfed, 0 times out of 10 in the Rain Village. So yeah, Sasuke wins 6 fights pretty handily. A couple of them are more difficult than the others, but still, there are 6 Akatsuki members that Sasuke has a very clear advantage against. Kisame is almost a 50-50, but I would say Sasuke has a slight edge, and then Itachi, Obito, and Pain are pretty much unwinnable for him, except for that very specific scenario of Pain being nerfed. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Please like the video as well. It helps me out with the algorithm, and watch this other video right here for more cool Naruto content. Thank you so much for watching, guys.